My name's Bernice, and today I'm going to read to you my book, The Sheep Magnet. In this book, there are a lot of fun or interesting details that are in the illustrations that aren't necessary to get the overall plot and feel for what's going on. And so I'm going to skip a lot of stuff and just read this to you like I read it with a class of students who are hearing it for the first time. So it won't be word for word, and also I'll say some things that the illustrations would show, just so that we get the flow in the reading time. So, shall we begin? The Sheep Magnet by Bernice Seward. And I have a little thing I wrote in here on my copy, and it says, "To all the students and adults I get to read this author's copy of The Sheep Magnet with, I absolutely, positively, undeniably hope that you will always be able to find creative ways to solve the problems you face. Full steam ahead, Bernice Seward." So, and again, The Sheep Magnet by Bernice Seward. Pete was a sheep magnet. He didn't know when it started or why, but one day sheep began to follow him around. No matter where he went or what he did, sheep showed up. Lots of sheep. Pete liked sheep. They were nice and fluffy, and they could be funny at times. And here's the nice sheep. Her name is Lilibet, and she's giving her milk to Pete. And then the funny sheep, who is Marcus, he's telling a joke, which may or may not be funny, depending on what you think. But everybody knew that sheep liked counting games. And counting with sheep could be dangerous, especially if you didn't want to fall asleep. And Pete did not want to fall asleep tonight. And down in this corner, we see a little piece of a note, and it says, "Plane arrives April 14th at 10:38 p.m. So he tried tricking them. He gathered some art supplies, he made a fake Pete, put it in a remote-controlled Jeep, and then he drove it down the sidewalk. He tried blocking them. He put a sign on his workshop and it said, "Pete's Workshop, absolutely no sheep allowed." And this is Cordy, and Cordy can't quite read yet. And so she asks, "What does that say?" And Simon says, "It says, Pete's Workshop, absolutely no sheep allowed." And she says, "No sheep allowed? Shouldn't it say no loud sheep?" And Simon says, "That must be it. Let's fix it for him." So they put up a new sign that says, "Pete's Workshop, shh, no loud sheep," like at the library. Now I made a special little poster to share because one of the details that you kind of got to understand for there is this is what Pete's Workshop sign says. So Pete's Workshop, absolutely no sheep allowed, and that word allowed is spelled A-L-L-O-W-E-D, which means you can be there, can do something. But what Cordy heard or thought it said was no sheep allowed, A-L-O-U-D, which has a totally different meaning, like I'm reading this story aloud. And so she's like, shouldn't it say no loud sheep? But then he tried ignoring them. So Marcus is telling a joke and he's ignoring that. And some sheep are doing some fun stuff and he's ignoring that. But this purple sheep, her name is Thyme, T-H-Y-M-E. And she's getting a little wobbly. And she says, "Uh-oh, I hope I don't fall." And she fell on Pete. But the sheep kept coming. These sheep ask if they can drive the Jeep. And these ones tell Pete that they fixed his sign, and then Marcus is telling another joke. Pete really did not want to fall asleep tonight. What attracts the sheep, he wondered? Magnetism? Gravity? Smell? And you'll notice on the calendar here, there are some dates marked off with red, and then there's the dates circled as well. So he tried reverse magnetism. With magnets, north repels north. North attracts south, so the north pole of a magnet will attract the south pole of another magnet. And then if you switch those around and you have north by north, north repels north because like repels like. And so Pete has a question. He wonders, do Pete and the sheep equal? Pete has a north pole at his head and the sheep have have south poles of their head? If so, if Pete was upside down, would he repel the sheep since the north pole repels the north pole? And his hypothesis then is that if Pete reverses direction, then the upside down Pete will repel the sheep. So he puts an experiment to work. He does an experiment. He gives them red paint and blue paint. Not that the paint itself makes a difference, but it just color codes them. And then he does a handstand. What do you think's going to happen? Do you think it's going to work? Well, we'll find out soon, because the next thing he tries with some other sheep is an anti-gravity device. Gravity is pretty powerful, but there are some forces that can help overcome gravity, at least for a little while, and one of those forces is propulsion. So Pete orders a DIY catapult in a box, and he puts it together and then gives it to some sheep, and he says, I built that for you. Go have fun with it for a really long time. After that, he tried sheep-repellent spray. He found a recipe for kid-safe bug repellent that works for sheep. He gathered some supplies and made up a bottle. He quadrupled the recipe. And then he's going after the sheep and spraying them, and he's like, it won't hurt you, it's safe for kids. But he happens to have the recipe in his back pocket, and it falls out, and then Lilibet sees it, and she's reading the recipe, and there's a couple little flies, and they're like, that smells gross, I'm out of here. Me too. And Lilibet's like, bug repellent? This stuff works great. So the next thing is, but the sheep kept coming. Pete really, truly did not want to fall asleep tonight. He made a list of ways to scatter sheep. Then he raced them. He chased them. He called in a vet. He booed them. He shooed them. He tickled their feet. He threw French fries at them. He tie-dyed them. He hired a wolf who played Go Fish. He caved them. He shaved them. He painted them black. He flunked them. He dunked them. He sent them to space. And even after all that, the sheep kept coming. Getting rid of sheep was more trouble than it was worth. But Pete really, truly, absolutely did not want to fall asleep tonight. Fine, Pete told the sheep. If you won't leave, I'll put you to work. And he did. Team 1, organize the workshop. Team 2, clean the backyard. Team 3, make snacks for everyone. So Team 3 went to the kitchen and they worked on making snacks. Team 2 went to the backyard and worked on cleaning up. And Team 3 went to the workshop and worked on organizing. Pete kept busy directing the sheep because he really, truly, absolutely, positively did not want to fall asleep. Yep. So Lulu puts a blanket on Pete, and then the sheep start to leave, and a car pulls up outside. Somebody comes in, sets down car keys on the table, comes into the living room, and Cordy wakes Pete up with a feather on his ear. Mom, Petey, I'm glad you're back. Me too. I brought back a few leaf sheep. Is that okay? They're sea slugs that eat algae. Sheep slugs? They'll fit right in. And finally, Pete really, truly, absolutely, positively, undeniably did not mind falling asleep tonight. The end.